Our Terribly Transient Feat by Kauenelikha. Summary.
A good master wouldn't let his dog die, he mumbles. A good master, Chuuya sneers, wouldn't nullify my ability and not expect me to get hurt. Dazai acting strange is never surprising. He's weird. He follows his whims and pines after death like a scorned lover. But nullifying Chuuya mid-battle and refusing to elaborate, Chuuya's going to strangle him before he can even think of killing himself. Or Chuuya and the mind-numbing conundrum that is Dazai.
Chapter 1. Chuuya's not sure what they're doing here. The narrow strip of beach near their safe house is long and empty. Large, sheer cliffs jut into the sky to their right. The ocean, a huge glittering mass, sprawls to the left. Despite being the same ocean, it's different from the one bordering Yokohama's shores. A sort of welcoming allure to it that promises he'd never come back if he went in. Dazai walks ahead, shoes in hand and bare feet leaving a determined trail in the wet sand. He walks with sure, measured steps, taking a careful second to let his feet sink in each time. His shadow follows along, faithful and dark under the full moon. Chuuya walks a few paces behind. His own shoes are torn and abandoned in some alleyway, socks stuffed in his pockets. If not for his injuries, he might have amused himself by stepping in Dazai's footprints. But the bastard is as long-legged as they come, and Chuuya may or may not have a bullet hole in his hip. Dazai would waste no time calling him a dog following its master either. Obnoxious fucking prick. Every few meters, their little trail is washed away by the sea's gentle caress, much to Chuuya's annoyance. He doesn't understand why it itches the way it does when it's the most convenient way to cover their tracks. He ignores the feeling. The secluded space is otherwise peaceful, quiet and steady in a way Chuuya had forgotten the world could be. He wishes he were here with a body that didn't feel like a beaten hunk of meat. It was one of Dazai's whims. His steps are light. Not in the way when he hops along walls so he doesn't fall from his perch. He walks like there's a weight lifted off of him. Cheer in his step and all that cliché. Chuuya is concerned. Chuuya wants to punch him. "Oi, mackerel! The fuck are we here for?" he yells. Dazai, of course, doesn't respond, just continues with his game. A beat later he sighs, loud enough to be heard over the waves. The action pulls at some wound or the other. He needs a nap, or a smoke, anything but whatever riddle Dazai will present to him. With the mission over, their target dead at their feet, there was nothing left to do but run. While they broke in and got information from the man, enemy reinforcements had surrounded them. Dazai had foreseen it as always. What he hadn't prepared for was the sheer number of people, all ready with machine guns. It's a blur from there. Chuuya scrambling to get them out, Dazai yanking him forward by the wrist while bullets rained on them and hence his bullet wounds. Of course none even grazed the bastard. Of course he laughed at Chuuya for missing the tiny ability user aiming their ability at him. Compressed plasma bullets or something that he could have stopped, but the mackerel decided to play knight in shining armor and left him in an objectively more defenseless position. The second they were at the edge of the town, close enough to their safe house, he slammed Dazai into a wall, fist holding him up by his collar, other arm raised to strike. "What was that? You nullified me in the middle of fucking battle, Dazai!" he hissed. Dazai raised his arms up, relaxed, nonchalant like Chuuya couldn't gut him right then and there. "Chibi's alright, isn't he?" Chuuya tightened his hold. "I'm serious, you piece of shit. What was that? Trying to kill me so no one could stop you from dying?" Wow, such far-fetched imagination for someone with hats for brains. Dazai rolled his eyes. If it was something Chibi needed to be concerned about, he would know. Chuuya would have punched him, but Mr. Executive would go whining to Mori. Dazai let his head thump against the wall and turned it to the mouth of the alley. His visible eye widened as a gasp left his lips. "Chibi," he breathed, hands clutching Chuuya's arms, not to get him to let go, but to get his attention. Like he wasn't the sole center of any of Chuuya's problems lately. "Chibi, let's go to the beach." Chuuya blinked at the sudden change. Dazai turned to him, moonlight bright in his eye. He looked excited. Chuuya would go as far as saying he looked happy, not high on adrenaline with sharp grins after the end of a successful mission as they usually were. Happy, like going to the beach was the one thing that would give him the inner peace he seemed to lack. It explained why he'd stared at the ocean with a forlorn gaze the entire interrogation, head in his palm, looking out the window and barely helping. Chuuya's simple method of roughing the target up was enough in the end. It was no less infuriating. Dazai was never this excited about anything but a new suicide method. 'Twas just a beach, but Chuuya wouldn't deny Dazai this. Not when he'd been looking thinner each day the new title settled on his shoulders. He wouldn't get any answers when he was like this anyways, and the safe house was by the beach, so despite his sluggish wounds, he agreed to go. Not before delivering a swift punch to his solar plexus. Stay close, he'd warned. We aren't in the clear yet. Chuuya is mean, Dazai whined. Chuuya ignored him. At any rate, the idiot can't be trusted alone. Chuuya still isn't convinced he doesn't intend to off himself in the ocean. Mori would have his head if the newest executive died under his watch. Dazai, he grumbles now. The safe house isn't far. He can see its roof peeking out behind the tree line. They're heading straight towards it. Couldn't he walk any faster? A rather soft breeze blows by. Chuuya shivers, clutching his hat out of habit. Something pulls. He feels blood drip down his side. Fucking great. The ocean laps at their feet 3 more times before Dazai deigns to acknowledge him. He turns around, walking backwards, feet still leaving behind firm marks. "Ne, Chuuya," he starts, arms behind his back. "Do you ever think about our mortality?" The question catches him off guard. Isn't he just full of surprises today? Chuuya frowns, considering it. With jobs like theirs, it's a hard truth they deal with all the time. When every day could be their last, when their own hands snuff out so many lives, there's nothing to do but look at it straight and accept it. Sort of hard not to. He shrugs. Dazai smiles, close-lipped and genuine. Chuuya doesn't know what to make of it. Then he clasps his hand together. Isn't it wonderful? Death is the one equal in everyone's life. Nothing can take it away. It can only be given or delayed. It's the absolute truth in our lives. He gives a dreamy sigh and Chuuya scoffs. With the almost reverent way he says it, Chuuya's inclined to think his assumption of suicide is right. The surf climbs up again, spraying the bottom of their legs. He hides a wince, salt stinging his wounds. Dazai has stopped, watching the water rush by his feet, a glee sparkling in his visible eye. Their footsteps disappear again, and Dazai keeps watching with childlike delight. He looks up at Chuuya, a smile of pure adoration on his face. Chuuya doesn't return the smile though, not as things fall into place. Dazai grins. His eye fucking crinkles at the edges. He's smiling a true smile. Chuuya wants to scream. He can only wish he was seeing that expression in any other circumstance. Dazai turns around again, back to walking. Chuuya lags behind. He's tired. He aches in all the wrong places, half tempted to just leave the mackerel and go sleep. He doesn't want to think about shitty Dazai and his idiotic brain and how he started to worship death. Right now, that freak of a boy looks like he could be high. He's humming a tune that isn't his suicide song. Something Chuuya swears he's heard before. It's happy and upbeat. And doesn't that send a shudder down his spine? If not for his clear, sober eyes, Chuuya wouldn't think of anything other than drugs. For as brilliant as his brain was, he still needed a physical reminder that he wasn't immortal. Their lives were as fleeting as the footprints they left behind, washed away and done within the blink of an eye. There's something like molasses in his chest, slow and heavy. He won't let it stay. Chuuya stares at Dazai's retreating back. When did he stop? Dazai came here for comfort of all things, to remember that no matter what may happen, however many attempts he fails, he will get to die one way or another. This is not an earth-shattering discovery. It's nothing new. A familiar feeling wells up in Chuuya. His blood boils, heat spreading to his face, fists clenched and trembling. They went out of their way for this? They're risking their lives for this? He goes to step forward, catch up with Dazai and punch some sense into him, but his limbs give up. He stumbles, and something is wrong. "Dazai," he calls. Dazai hums, still transfixed by the water lapping at his feet. Chuuya's vision starts to blur. "Dazai," he says again, urgent, and the taller boy finally jerks around, eye widening at Chuuya's graceless descent to the ground. He kneels, breath coming in short bursts. "Chuuya!" he yells, skidding to his knees in front of him. He's asking him where he's hurt and what happened, you stupid slug. Why didn't you tell me? Now I have to carry your stupid ass all the way to the safe house. Poison, you dumb shit. It can't be too bad if Chuuya has the energy to curse Dazai, right? "Can you stand?" Dazai asks, already wrapping an arm around his waist. Chuuya coughs blood. Fuck. The waves race back, soaking their pants before Dazai lifts him up, pulling all of his wounds. He curses. He has half a mind to shove Dazai off. The cool rush of no longer human adds an extra layer of sensation he'd rather not focus on, but one shaky step proves he won't be getting anywhere without help. Fucking fuck. Stupid. Dazai mutters, brows creased. Idiotic slug. How? Stabbed. Where? Left side. When? When? When he... The girl. Ah, symptoms? It's Mariga. You need a second opinion. They glare at each other. He'd argue more if he weren't actively dying right now. Boss gave them a dozen small vials of antidotes to cover for general poisons most criminals have easy access to. He sat them down for 5 hours and drilled every poison and their symptoms into their heads, along with their antidotes. Chuuya is by no means a squeamish person, but even he has his limits. Dazai noticed, of course. He proceeded to give Chuuya pop quizzes, which were him reciting the more grotesque symptoms in horrifying detail, and Chuuya giving the poison's name and antidote within a second. All efforts to make him stop were met with an innocent, "Mori-san said we should be able to recite this in our sleep." Then Chuuya would attempt to punch him and threaten torture if he ever breathed near Chuuya while he slept. "Weakness," he starts, and Dazai snorts. "Limbs aren't responding well. Trouble breathing, blurry vision." He coughs more blood. "That," he coughs again. "The stab wound burns." "Mariga," Dazai repeats. "Good news is that you have 6 hours to live." Chuuya must be imagining the strain in his voice. He can't be that out of shape if he's struggling to carry Chuuya's weight. "And I had no idea." He rolls his eyes. "Just get the antidote, fucker." Okay. He's lowered back to the ground. Soon enough, a syringe is pinching his arm and he doesn't really process it with the new wave of nausea and blood dribbling down his chin. "Up we go, Chibi," Dazai warns before pulling him back up. He can't hide his sharp intake of breath. Dazai mutters something he can't hear. It doesn't take long until they're pushing through an old wooden door, but it's long enough that Chuuya is almost wishing for death, and wouldn't Dazai have a field day with that by the time he sits on the bed. It's a rickety thing, as old as the rest of the house, pushed against 2 walls. He lays against the headboard, groaning as his body can finally rest. He's almost at the edge of sleep, but with a certain mackerel involved, he never can find peace. Things are dropped beside him and a stupid finger pokes below his collarbone, making a hollow sound. "Chuuya, take off your clothes." He grunts and throws an arm over his eyes. Chuuya will die in his sleep if he doesn't treat his injuries. Continues to sing song. "Fine," Chuuya growls, almost ripping off his clothes. Dazai watches him with a critical eye, his eyebrow twitching. He doesn't appreciate the silent judgment. He's having a hard enough time staying upright as it is. The second the shirt's out of his hand, Dazai's pushing him back, keeping him upright. He wipes the blood with a rag, eye looking for something on his skin. It's methodic, lulling Chuuya back to sleep. Too soon he wakes up to the burn of alcohol on his wounds. He only tolerates it because they have a deal. If Chuuya wanted to treat Dazai's wounds so badly, then he had to let Dazai do the same. Neither of them ever mentioned their hatred of doctors. "Chuuya needs stitches," Dazai accuses, the next swipe of cotton a bit too harsh. "If it's that much of a problem, I can do it myself." Chuuya hissed, annoyed. He can sleep it off and look in the morning, nothing he hasn't done before. "How'd you even get hurt? Aren't you the big bad gravity manipulator?" "I was until a stupid fish decided to grab me while we were escaping, who..." "Bastard, you don't have to press that fucking much, I'm hardly bleeding." Dazai glares at him and continues to press the stupid gauze against the stupid stab wound. With the new flaring pain, Chuuya is wide awake. He watches the fish work, his movements stiff and jerky and very unlike Dazai. His moves are mechanical and planned as always, but there's an undercurrent of emotions to them. His brow furrows the more wounds he tends to. Dazai is mad. Chuuya blinks, his own brows furrowing. Dazai is mad. It isn't every day that Chuuya keels over because he's been poisoned. He doesn't get hurt all that often either. If anything, it's the stupid boy who's cleaning his wounds' fault. He doesn't get to be mad. That's Chuuya's thing. He feels it bubbling in his chest like an answering call to Dazai's emotion because fuck that. The boy opens the suture kit with too much force and Chuuya's had enough of this. He opens his mouth, a reprimand at the tip of his tongue, but what comes out is a strangled yelp. They stare at each other. Dazai's hands are held in the air, still impassive like he's a spooked animal, eyes darting to his hip. Right, the bullet wound. The second passes and Dazai's expression darkens. He pulls at Chuuya's pants and Chuuya holds on to them. "The fuck are you doing?" There's more wounds. "I'm fine." Dazai pokes him right over the bullet hole and Chuuya gasps. "Bastard!" "You're clearly not fine, Chuuya. What's gotten into you?" Dazai finally pulls down his pants and the fabric scrapes against the wound, leaving behind a streak of blood. He's pulled to the edge of the bed as well. Dazai's gaze hardens. Chuuya has ended up hurt on account of Dazai's insane plans too often to count. He doesn't understand what crawled up his ass and died this time. Did he grow a conscience between that building and here? The fuck's gotten into you? The brunette turns back to his hip. It's only for a second, but Chuuya knows he's stalling. A good master wouldn't let his dog die, he mumbles. A good master, Chuuya sneers, wouldn't nullify my ability and not expect me to get hurt. Dazai doesn't answer. Dazai always answers. The boy never runs out of words. I'm talking to you, dipshit. None of it matters, you dumb chibi. We're here now. Don't sit there and tell me none of it matters. I'm supposed to let you play savior next time and get hurt again? Is the bullet still in there? He asks instead of answering. My fucking god, no, it went the other side. Answer me, Dazai. You're supposed to do what I say like you always do and we'll achieve victory because it's a plan I've orchestrated so it's bound to be successful. Asking him to trust him and calling him a blind, loyal dog all in the same sentence. Amazing. No, you're supposed to explain why you even care. The needle goes in without warning and Chuuya has to shut his mouth. Motherfucking bastard started with the stab wound. He knew it would hurt the most. I'm not letting this one go, he pants. As you say. I'm not. Okay. They sit in silence as Dazai works. Chuuya shivers. He's down to his boxers and lost a considerable amount of blood. The needle threads through his skin in painful tugs, and he wonders why there's never any damn anesthetic in these places. He reins in a sigh. God, fuck. Why'd he end up having to spend most of his time with shitty Dazai of all people? He tries matching his breathing with the waves. It's too slow, and he feels like passing out in the first few seconds. He feels the boy's curiosity and shuts his eyes instead. Dazai pulls another harsh stitch, and he's about to yell at him to watch it. But he's tying the last knot and Chuuya deflates. He tenses the next second. Dazai's hand brushes over his thighs and Chuuya shivers for a different reason. The other boy's been careful to avoid any skin-on-skin contact beyond what's necessary. Dazai gets up without a word. Maybe the contact was too much for him. Instead of more stony silence, his coat is thrust into his face, and Dazai's too. I'm done with your torso, Dazai grumbles, kneeling on the ground in front of him and poking at the bullet hole. Chuuya wraps the coat around himself, some warmth seeping into his skin. Dazai pulls at the underwear that's stuck to the wound. They've both been hurt plenty, Dazai more than Chuuya. They've never had to deal with each other's underwear and Chuuya finds he doesn't care. The mackerel's seen him at the worst points of his life. Some skin wouldn't do shit. Dazai, on the other hand, thinks it would, looking up at Chuuya for permission. You're not gonna take the entire thing off anyways. He scoffs. Do what you need to. Dazai nods, getting back to work. A beat, then. Why'd you try and save me, Dazai? Such a stubborn dog. Dazai sighs, the theatrical kind, and Chuuya speaks before he can spew any bullshit. I don't have the fucking patience. Answer me or don't. I'll keep asking. His hands never stop, pulling a few threads stuck in his skin with tweezers. Wrinkles dig into his forehead, mouth set in a severe frown. When he speaks, it's measured, like he's weighing each word as they come out. First of all, I didn't merely try. I did save you. Think for yourself. The ability would have hit you before you noticed and it'd deal a lot more damage than normal bullets. You've let me get hit with worse before, Chuuya points out. You'd be too hurt and would be stuck in the town still. He continues like Chuuya didn't just speak. Then he mumbles like a petulant child. And I wouldn't be able to go to the beach. Couldn't have just warned me from afar? You left both of us defenseless. Do you realize that? He doesn't comment on what Dazai said because yes, if the ability had hit him, they might have still been stuck in the town. Stupid boy had to be right. It was a split-second decision. Like you don't make those every other hour. It was stupid and insane. We do stupid and insane every day, Chuuya. Let it rest, he says with gritted teeth. You've made better decisions in worse conditions. Why'd you grab my hand? He waves said hand in frustration. I was beside you and it seemed like the most logical choice. None of that logical in the moment bullshit. Why'd you grab my hand, Dazai? I've told you already. Why did you grab my hand? You were going to get hurt! He yells. Dazai's looking up at him, breathing hard. Hands fisted on top of his thigh, anger and frustration etched into his features. Oh. Chuuya never considered Dazai just didn't want him to be hurt. It's such a simple reason for someone as twisted as the boy tending to his wounds. It doesn't make sense. Chuuya looks for the sight and finds none. Dazai turned back to the wounds, movement stiff like before, the anger sticking, now that it has risen to the surface again. Chuuya leans back on his hands. He lets his voice sound as exhausted as he is. Why are you mad, Mackerel? I just am. It's the same thing Chuuya has replied with many times, a phrase everyone in his life has become familiar with. Teenage hormones and grief and high-stress situations do nothing but fuel his quick-switch rage. He knows the face of someone who's just mad. That's not the boy at his feet. Dazai's jaw is set, teeth grinding to a painful degree. He knows why he's mad, and he's equally mad about it. Chuuya sighs, staring at the ceiling, asking for strength. Come on! Shut up, Chuuya. The outburst catches him off guard. It has no strength to it. It's still sharp with venom. I'm the reason you can walk at all or breathe freely. Be thankful like a good dog and keep your nose where it belongs. He wants to sigh again. Seems he pushed too far. Dazai already let one of his cards slip. He'll clutch at the rest of them with desperate hands. Chuuya will let him keep them. He's tired. He doesn't care enough anymore. Dazai sticks the last of the gauze over the wound and stands. He moves to the far end of the house and rummages through an already open cupboard. Chuuya takes that as his cue to lean against the headboard and rest. He's almost asleep when things are thrown on his bed again. Food, Dazai announces, settling at the edge. Chuuya squints at the wrappers and shuts his eyes. The not-quite energy bars are waved in front of his face like he'd smell them and wake up like a... Right. Chuuya needs to eat, Dazai mutters. He isn't mad anymore. His eye is back to being mackerel levels of dead. Chuuya'd be unnerved if he had any energy left. He might as well congratulate him on reaching the other side while still being here. Maybe he'd look happy again. Mackerels need to eat too, he says. They have a silent stare-off, then reach for a bar each. It's a weird mutual... whatever the opposite of destruction is. Dazai's weird. Whatever. He's shed his anger between the walk to the cupboard and back. Chuuya's not sure how that's possible. Anger's a hungry, gnawing thing in his chest, and keeps eating away at him until there's no energy left. Dazai's is like a pot of milk simmering over, backing down once the flame's been rid off. They both finish, Chuuya nodding off with food still in his mouth. Dazai forces a bottle of water in his hand, and they drink them together. Then finally, Chuuya lies down on his side and lets his eyes slide shut. A blanket drapes over him and he hums. He sighs and opens his eyes again when the weight from the bed disappears. Dazai, he asks. Dazai comes close, and Chuuya uses the last of his strength to pull him onto the bed. Sleep, he grumbles, gingerly laying the arm of his injured side on the fish. If you move, all your hard work will come undone. Dazai's face scrunches, then he sighs, loud and performative. What if I have to pee? Hold it, now let me sleep. Chuuya shuts his eyes with no intention of opening them until morning. Dazai shifts, careful with his arm. He turns until his back faces Chuuya's front. They both know he could slip out without aggravating Chuuya's injuries. The last thing he hears are mumbled complaints before sleep takes him. In the morning, they wake up to Dazai on his back and Chuuya breathing on his neck, the arm of his good side squished beneath them. Dazai complains about dog germs. Chuuya cries about losing both his arms. He doesn't know how to bring up last night. Dazai certainly doesn't. They go back to headquarters and part ways after the report. They don't talk about it that day or any time after. Of course. God, these two are impossible. I hope they explode. In case you haven't noticed, there is a mystery revolving the reason Dazai's upset. I'd love to hear your guessing on that. This might be the fic with the most dialogue I've read so far. It brought my voice acting skills to light. Overall, the prose in this fic is just chef's kiss. Glade, the author of this fic, has such a unique style of writing that just tugs at the heartstrings. This fic is still unfinished, so there is no chapter 2 for it until Glade decides so. Until then, check out her other works linked in the description. I'll never stand for how underrated she is. Go send her fics love before I bring out the pitchforks. Now! So, hope y'all enjoyed, and thank you so much for listening. See you next time!